Hey y'all, this is Hope at Crafty Hope and welcome. I recently made a big batch of these hidden paperclip tags and thought I would share with y'all how I did it. Now this is the short version because the long version you can find over on my Patreon. So I'm starting with a 12 by 12 piece of scrapbook paper. This is a little bit heavier weight, but it doesn't really matter. And I am folding it in half. Now, if you don't have 12 by 12 paper, you could definitely alter this to use whatever size paper you have. You just kind of want to make sure it's long enough so we can get that tag element. As you saw, I folded it in half and used my bone folder. Then I'm going to grab 5 of these jumbo paper clips. These are just regular paper clips, and place one on either end and one in the center, and then the other 2 go between. Now, if you've got a smaller piece of paper, you may not be able to use 5 of them, but that's what worked on this. From there, I'm taking it to my paper cutter and just cutting between each of the paper clips. From there, I'm kind of just centering up. Now, these are all different sizes, which doesn't bother me. That gives them a little more uniqueness. I don't like uniformity, as you'll see. And then I'm going to fold them. So I am folding them up so that there is a bit of overlap on the top. It's anywhere from like a 1/2 inch, maybe, I don't know, you'll see when I flip it over, about a 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch, something hanging over the top of the paper clip. And it kind of makes this like W pattern, you'll see, just like that. And I did that to all of my papers. I did come in and bone fold some of the creases just so that they were a little more crisp. Once I had all of that done, I am going to grab some Aliens tacky glue and start gluing them down. Now, you could use whatever glue you want. I found that Elmer's works fine. It just takes a little bit longer to glue, or if you've got like a Fabri-Tac or a 3-in-1 glue, that is fine. So I'm spreading glue on the portion around the paper clip on one side. You know, just making sure there's enough there, making sure I get to the edges especially, and then creasing it. Then I'm going to flip it over and do the area around the paper clip again, along with that tag area up at the top, that excess that we kept at the top. Yeah, and then crease that and put it aside to dry while I do the other 4. And yeah, we're going to go through this. Like I said, this is the shortened version. I do have a much longer version with some other tips and tricks and alternatives and things like that over on Patreon. I'll have that link for y'all below. Once they are dry and cured, I am kind of going through them, and because this has a white back on it, I can see where the folds and the cuts weren't perfect, so I'm trimming that bit off, just, you know. And then as a fun little finishing element, I'm rounding the corners just using a paper round or punch thing, going around all 4 corners. Mine's not great, but it worked. It got the job done. I did struggle just a little bit, especially, you know, there's glue in there and several layers and that kind of thing, but I finally got it to work. Probably should have shown y'all a I don't know, a less messy one, but just kind of show you that we all struggle. And then to cover up the white where the paper has been cut, I am using a ink blender with some walnut stain distress ink and going around all 4 edges of this, making sure I get a little bit on the front and all of, you know, just covering up that little bit of white cut paper. So, like I said, I did this to all 5 of mine. And then the next thing we get to do is I decided to add a little bit of texture with some embossing. So there are my supplies, some stamps, an embossing ink pad, some embossing powder, and some baby wipes. Now I found it easiest to do this in batches. If you want to do them individually, depending on the pattern of your paper, go for it. I just thought this worked great for me. I'm also making sure that my clips are so that the opening of the clip is at the bottom before I stamp them, because the stamp, as you can see, that I'm using is directional. And then I've got a smaller stamp that, and some of them I did come in to fill in any of the gaps, but in this case I decided to go ahead and just emboss it. So now that I've stamped with that embossing powder and my stamp pad, I'm spreading out my embossing powder. This is a copper embossing powder. I did it on all, I did 35 of these tag clips, y'all. So this, yeah, it just was easier to pick something kind of neutral for everything. And I'm pulling from my just random stash of embossing powders and trying to use some of it. This was definitely a scrap busting kind of thing for me. So once that was all on there, I used a heat tool to get the embossing powder to melt and cure. Once all of mine were done, I'm coming in with some fabric, some yearbook pictures. You can see these are just the photos from a yearbook, and some large print book text to add accents to these. So, and I worked at on these one at a time, just kind of focusing my attention on them. Starting by grabbing a yearbook photo and really just kind of working it down. I'm picking out, the next one on here. And so I picked this girl. And I'm trimming off all the little white edges, and that doesn't matter too completely because I am going to use that Distress Ink walnut stain once again to kind of just dress up the edges, make it feel a little more aged. And then I put her down and decided to focus on adding some kind of fabric element, and for her I decided a bit of lace was going to be perfect. So I'm going to futz with this quite a bit. So yeah, to get this lace cut down to the size I want and the direction I want and torn down and all of that. You'll see me go through all of this. Like I said, there is an extended version over on Patreon where you'll see me make all 5 of the paperclip tags that I made with this scrapbook paper, but then there is an additional video where I go through all 35 that I made, and you'll get to see the details I added on each and every one of them. So you can hop on over to Patreon, become a subscriber, but I do also have just the video with the 5 that I did in a slower format with all the tips, and you can buy that video just for $3 outright. So but I decided to share this video with everybody here. For an additional textured element, I am also going to throw a button on there because y'all know I'm a bit button crazy. So, and everything once again is getting stuck down with some more of that tacky glue. The lace, the picture, the button, all of it. Perfect. Tacky glue was the perfect thing to kind of make this a really quick process and not have to switch between glues. So now I want to pick out a sentiment to put on here just because that's, it just felt incomplete without some kind of word on it. So I've got some large print book text there and found the word remember. Or I may have gotten I remember. I did. I put I remember. And I'm going to ink that up as well. So it just kind of goes with the ink that's on the photo. And I think I'm going to use my Oohoo glue stick for this one because it felt like a bit of overkill to use the A-lanes, but if that's what you've got, it'll work just as well. Then I'm going to take a regular hole punch and punch a hole. Well, first I picked up some fabric to put at the top of this tag, and I just tore it down in a nice little strip and grabbed my hole punch, and I'm punching a hole. For a little finishing element, I am adding reinforcers to this. If you want to use like an eyelet or something like that, that's fine, but I did alter some reinforcers, which you'll see in the Patreon video, to kind of match my tags, sticking that on either side, and then tying just a simple knot on here. Once that knot is nice and tied up, this tag is done, y'all. So I'm going to give you a look at all of the ones I made along with how this paperclip tag works. So you'll see here's all 5 of the ones I made with this scrapbook paper. Each and every one of them is a little bit different with some touches that are pertinent to the picture or the elements I added. And yeah, it was a lot of fun to really personalize each of these. And then here is this paperclip tag in action. I'm putting it on one way and then putting it on the other. And yeah, I just love these. They're like I said, a great stash buster to kind of just use some of the things you've got laying around. I hope you enjoyed this. Let me know if you have any questions, and I'll see you later with more. Thanks, y'all. Bye.